My name's Hayden and I actually work for the Surrey Wildlife Trust in the United Kingdom. That's one of my hats. I also am very, very privileged to be a presenter on Safari Live for Nat Geo Wild here. And I'm joined by a very, very good friend and co-presenter, James Hendry here, who be a presenter on Safari Live for Nat Geo Wild here. And I'm joined by a very, very good friend and co-presenter, James Hendry here, who is...
And they can talk to us, can't they?
Yes, absolutely.
So please talk to us at any stage. If you want to do any questions you have, hashtag Safari Live or questions at wildearth.tv if you're emailing. I think that's how we're going to run it.
Absolutely.
Same as normal. So my name is James. I've been working in this area for about 15 years now, on and off. Did a bit of game management, did a lot of guiding, a little bit of lodge management, and my educational background is in biology and land management and social conservation. So the relationship, very important relationship of people that live around these great wilderness areas that we have in Africa here, and how they relate to wilderness areas, because they're obviously often very poor and poverty-stricken villages that sit on the western fringes of our reserves. So that's what I have to contribute to the drive today, and any other questions that you might have, please send them through.
Fantastic. And what we want to do today is answer as many questions that relate to the courses or the coursework that you're doing. General questions just about how we got to do what we do now. Obviously, being here and seeing some fantastic animals, so that's where we're going to go right now. If we're lucky, we've got a little surprise for you. We're going to make our way across just to probably about a 5-10 minute drive max, but we can ask some questions as we go. In the control room we have Louise and Kirsten directing for us. On camera here, another legend, Mr. Wium, behind here, and we have a camera on the vehicle that's broadcasting. It's actually sending a signal out of an aerial out the back of the vehicle, which I'll put some pictures, some images up on Facebook for you or send them to you. And then it goes over to a repeater station, to a satellite, gets beamed to London, and then goes to the States when we broadcast for Nat Geo Wild. But at this time, it's just going onto the UK platform and online. So any questions you've got, as James said, please send them through. We'd love to start hearing them from you. I want a special thank you to my director, Amy Clark, for setting this up, and hopefully she's watching right now. Fingers crossed we don't get any gremlins in the system too, James. Hey, we sometimes get little dropouts, so please bear with us on that. A little bit of a bumpy road here. We do get dropouts now and again, but it is live. This is coming to you directly from South Africa. I think it's a 3-second delay by the time it gets to London, which is extraordinary stuff. So can you give us a little bit of a background, James, about the size of Djuma, Sabi Sands, about the history and joining Kruger, please, mate?
So we're sitting in about 8 million acres, so 3.5 million hectares of contiguous wildlife area. And incorporated in that, of course, that is called the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, and that's made up of 3 parks that exist in 3 different countries. And they're contiguous wildlife areas. We're in the Kruger National Park, that's the biggest portion of it, 2.2 million hectares. Then into Mozambique, we've got the Limpopo National Park, and north into Zimbabwe, we've got the Gonarezhou National Park, and that's joined to the whole lot by a little section called the Sengwe Corridor. Now we sit on the very western fringes of that, and we're on a collection of private farms known as the Sabi Sands Game Reserve. And these private farms have been sort of owned by private owners since the turn of the 20th century, so from around 1900. And they've been used on and off for game viewing. People have tried to run cattle on them. People have done all sorts of other different things here. But eventually it's turned out that this is the best way to use this land to make it work, is to run wildlife on it, which of course is how nature intended. So we're sitting on the western fringes here, 60,000 hectares of the Sabi Sands, and we're on a little portion of that called Djuma, and that's 900 hectares, and to the west of us we also traverse an area called Arethusa, which is about 600 hectares. So we're sitting on about 1,500 hectares of what is a contiguous area of 8 million acres, or 3.5 million hectares. Are you working in hectares or acres in the United
we
Kingdom?
do a bit of both, don't we, in the UK? It's a little bit funny with that. Sometimes I even hear when people teach, they talk about an acre. It's old school, old money. People still get it, but hectares and metric are what we should be working with.
Yeah. Certainly for me, using the hectares, we'll go totally metric from here on in then. When we broadcast to the States, nobody knows what you're talking about, if you're talking about Celsius or hectares or meters or anything like that. So that's what we're going to go with today, I hope.
It's going to be a lot simpler for us today in the sense that James is exactly saying we have to give 2 versions of the temperature, 2 versions of weight, 2 versions of area, 2 versions of length, and it goes on. I think we should just hang a right and a left, hey mate?
Yeah.
So we're going to go down to a little spot. If we're lucky, temperature-wise at the moment it's about 26 degrees Celsius. So it's quite balmy. It's a beautiful temperature. The sun has got a bit of a bite to it. But what we've just had, and James can probably tell you a bit more, because I only arrived here. I come down and do about 13 broadcasts a year for Nat Geo Wild with the team. We've got an incredible team here of about 20 people now. It's strong. We've got about 5 presenters, all different ways we do it. And I come down and I'm very, very privileged to be a part of this team. So I sort of swap my hat between Surrey Wildlife Trust Education Manager and presenting on this beautiful show with these great people. So we are just before the rains, mate. Yeah, we've had a little touch.
So we've just come out of our dry season, which extends sort of between, I suppose we have the last rains around April, March probably, and then we have 3 or 4 months where we have a real smattering, maybe sort of 20 or 30 millimeters, and that's it until now, until November. So it's an almost 6-month dry season, but it's only this most recent, you want to go there?
Oh yes, let's do that. Let's do that.
The most recent rain we've had has been in November, so we have this kind of dry season, but it's pretty wet, or there's enough water up until about the beginning of October, and then things get really, really dry. And the animal herds start to congregate, and they come to the water holes, some of which are natural and some of which are human-made. Especially in these private farm areas, people tend to pump water or dig dams and that sort of thing. But now you can see that things turn pretty green, and I think from where you're sitting it probably looks totally verdant here. It probably looks like a kind of verdant jungle almost from all the greenery, and that's because we've had our first decent spring rains. We've probably had about 40 millimeters or 50 millimeters of rain so far, and for this area that's not a bad start. We probably only get a total of about 450 to 500 mils over a year, and I mean if you had that in England or the UK, it wouldn't be considered a day's worth of rain really. You'd have a major drought.
Yeah. So that gives you a bit of background about the area, the vegetation, the rainfall, and everything is dependent on that habitat that has to be supported by good management, really good management. Obviously tourism is a huge factor here. Tourism, and James can elaborate on that more after we get to this point, because we do have a little surprise here for you, hopefully.
Just around the corner.
Just around the next corner, sir. James, if you put the batteries in, I'll be very, very happy. And we've got a question, which is fantastic. Wow, got a fantastic question from Amy Clark. Hello Amy, fantastic to have you with us, matey, and thanks for setting all this up. And she's with the students at Marist Wood College, and a really, really great welcome to all of you. Fantastic to have you here with us. And your question is, what is our biggest challenge with management here? I'm going to throw that to you, mate. That's a really good question for you with experience, much more than I have in this area.
Amy, it depends on where you are, okay? It's not a simple question to answer, because in the Kruger National Park it's run by the National Parks Board, and they will make management decisions based on, well, they say it's based on science. Sometimes some of that science is fairly dicky, but they get it right most of the time, I think. And they will run the areas sort of to the east of us, which is part of the Kruger National Park. And in this particular area, in the Sabi Sound, in the private farms, each landowner has the mandate to manage his little patch as he likes. There is some attempt at coordination, but sometimes there isn't a huge amount. So basically, the most important management issue, I think, is coordinating a cohesive conservation plan between the different landowners, because of course the private landowners here, the national parks to the east of us, we've got another national park board in Mozambique and another one in Zimbabwe. So different ways of managing land, and of course different land uses. Some of the areas up to the north in Zimbabwe, they still do quite a lot of trophy hunting, so that's got to be integrated. There are a lot of people on the sides of the reserves, like I said, all around, and I think that's the greatest management challenge. Quite apart from anything to do with the actual wildlife here. We can talk about pumping water or not pumping water, we can talk about clearing bush or not clearing bush, and we can talk about managing animal numbers. Are there too many elephants? Are there not enough elephants? I don't think any of that is nearly as important as managing the relationship between the people outside and the actual reserve. And that's simply because in Africa, and especially in South Africa, conservation spaces tend to be very conflicted. We've got lots of poor people living outside who possibly think that they could use this land. And so to make sure that they derive maximum benefit from the land, that is the most complicated relationship that needs to be managed, I believe. From a purely land point of view, I suppose it would be water. Water is a crucial thing just everywhere around the world, but in a semi-arid area like this, it's the most crucial thing. And as soon as you change the water balance, the change of mammal species is obviously profound. So water balance would be the most obvious one in the actual bush.
I totally, what James said, obviously everything that James said was fantastic content and fantastic knowledge. The crux of it for me has always been, coming from the outside, is that animals and the habitats get on with it. They do it. They just do it themselves. As soon as you introduce these stinky little humans, that's when you have to manage it. Conservation really is about managing humans. I'm just going to stop here quickly. Just have it. Got a lovely question from Charlie Dodd. You'd love to see an elephant. We are going to try and do our best for you, matey, as much as we possibly can. We just stopped here just to have a look at an antelope that, you know what, I think, James, a lot of people drive past these beautiful antelope and give them a cursory glance because they see so many of them. And this is an impala. These are impala ewes or females, and I think nearly every one is pregnant, aren't they? Heavily pregnant.
Stages, yeah.
And there's a definite there's a big drop of lambs. We refer to them as lambs. I still don't understand that, why we've got lambs and...
It's a random kind of size difference, so the size changes with nyala.
Yeah. So this situation is that the impalas are going to be dropping their lambs very, very shortly. I think when the full rains come, James, in a couple of weeks, they'll probably be started dropping already. And with that comes an extraordinary smorgasbord of choice for predators, and yes, the whole cycle carries on. But they're a beautiful antelope. Some ecologists have classified them as the epitome of perfection when it comes to an antelope. They've got it all. They're hardy, they can browse, they can graze, they've got massive numbers, they're very adaptable, and they're very beautiful as well. Elegant.
Keep an eye out for little ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So they will hide their offspring just for the first few days, and then they start to form these little creches. But they're a beautiful antelope, and I think my background as a zookeeper before I got into working in Africa, or during that time when I was working in Africa on rhinoceros programs and chimpanzee rehab programs and work up in Uganda as well. Working in zookeeping, my love was hoofed animals, ungulates, the very, very cool creatures, and they make up a huge dynamic population around the world, don't they?
Yeah.
Successful. The ruminants, amazing.
We had a question from, I think it was, I've lost the name. Luke, there we go. Luke, you want to know about confusion or conflict with livestock in the area. Luke, we do get it every so often that the western boundaries of the Kruger, where we are tend to be fairly well managed and well sort of maintained. In Mozambique, not so much, and Zimbabwe also not so much. But so you do get some conflict with cattle coming on, and every so often, and sometimes animals going out, predators leaving, going under a fence or over a broken piece of fence that the elephants have perhaps pushed over, and that can create a conflict where cattle, which are extremely valuable to local people, can get eaten up by predators, which isn't ideal, of course. But the main conflict with livestock would come from domestic dogs. They do bring domestic diseases in here that can affect leopards, affect the wild dogs that we have out here. So that's the major conflict that we have with domestic animals. There is the other side of it, of course, where animals get out of the reserve and get into the communities. Elephants might raid crops, baboons definitely would raid crops, and those would be kinds of conflicts again that have to be managed on the borders of the reserve.
I think a great way to do that, maybe, Luke, you could set this up with some of the students, is to do a little role play where you have a scenario and you can come up with that scenario yourself. And I do it often with groups of students just to give them an understanding that every single person's perception of wildlife is different. And exactly what James was just saying then, you've got people that look at elephants as a pest, people that look at elephants as a trophy, people that look at elephants as a photograph, people that look at elephants as a piece of science. So set up a group of maybe 10 people and give them all a title, and then set up an impossible scenario that you could build that yourself, and I can help you with that if you want more information on that, and then role play it. Sometimes that can go for 10 minutes, 15, an hour, and you do get some really great understanding of wildlife. Now, we haven't had a lot of... We got some word that there were some creatures. I'm not going to say what creatures they were down here, but they happened to be moved on.
Fairly creature-free.
Yeah. But that's okay, we've still got some really good time. We've got an hour and 15 minutes up our sleeves to spend with you, and it's all dedicated to you. What do you reckon, mate?
Let's get to Buffelshoek.
Yeah, we're going to head up to a dam that we believe is, we know is one of the last sort of water points on this area. It's got a drinkable water in it. There's lots of little pools and puddles around the place still that animals will utilise. But we could have a chance of seeing some wildlife up here. We normally see beautiful birds up here. And as in the UK, James, like the wildlife is not as big and as easy to find. So birds are a huge thing in the United Kingdom, and very, very important to be protecting habitats, particularly for some species in Surrey that we work with. But this is a beautiful place to... Birds are always around too, folks, and I think what you have to keep up your sleeve is that you might not be into birding, but once you start to get out there and start ticking off your birds that you see, you really do get into it. Now, we may have a little bit of a drop of signal here, so please don't worry. We come back very quickly. We're dropping down into what we call a drainage line.
Should be fine.
And it's where, as you can see, water runs down. This is a man-made little bridge here for us to get across.
Very seldom will these rivers ever actually flow, only if there's a massive sort of storm or they come down in a flood, and then they'll dry up very quickly. Often water below the surface, which animals like elephants pick up sometimes, and they'll drink from the bottom of the drainage lines there. The rest of the animals, however, have to make do with moving to water. There's a very large perennial river to the south of us called the Sand River, and that's about 7 kilometers away from where we are now. So animals in the winter time will often have to go down there and then return here to feed. I just wanted to
quickly touch on something. We've got a message, a question firstly I just want to answer from Colin Page. And Colin, great to have you with us, mate. Thank you so much. How often do animals come in contact with humans? Well, it's a really interesting thing, and again, I'll get James's opinion on this as a person that's grown up here, lived here, worked here, with very, very different, an array of different places. But one of the things that I always try to impart on guests that we have anywhere in Africa is that there is a safe zone or a safe space. In this day and age, we have to promote that our morals and ethics are the highest of the highest standard. There's a zone that you don't. The whole key about watching wildlife is to try and view them, with them, but not changing their behaviour. And that is a real skill. And if you can get that, start to hone that skill, you start to go out and become one of those, one of the herd. You can walk with the elephants, you can sort of stand with the giraffes, you can do all different things, but the animal's behaviour is not changing. So we minimise the contact. There's no way on the planet that I would allow anyone to get out of the vehicle or go and approach an animal. That is just asking for trouble, and it's also irresponsible and morally and ethically unsound. So we don't have any contact, human contact with the animals here, but occasionally, as James will probably elaborate on for me now, it's the human-animal conflict zones on the periphery of these reserves that are probably the most intense. And that's where you have to do incredibly dedicated work, like what James does and many other teams. Another great guy here, Mike Grover, who works with the communities to build that relationship and make sure that the relationship is nurtured between the wildlife areas and the farming areas.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, we do have the odd experience, especially when we're on our own and we go for a walk. And to meet up with an elephant on foot, view him, especially if he knows that you're there but he's not affected by you. So sometimes if you see an old elephant bull and you're walking through the bush and there he is, you see him from quite a distance, he'll often just look over his shoulder like that at you and then just carry on feeding. That is a profound experience as a human being on foot in the woods, especially if you're unarmed and you can, there's a buffalo, and you can go nowhere. But that is an experience that's few and far between. And as Hayden's saying, more and more, our attempt is to view animals in their natural habitat without them being affected by us. That's not always possible. We're in a Land Rover, of course, and so it's making a noise, it smells bad to animals. So animals do react, but we try and minimize that effect more and more. We get away completely from a kind of macho, aggressive approach to being in the bush where we push an animal and irritate them and that sort of thing. So it's really important that that's what we try and do.
I'm going to let Wium zoom in on them, because this is a classic example. We just picked up on the behaviour. Normally buffalo will either stand and just tolerate us, but if you could see those buffalo, they weren't stopping, they were going to walk on, and they're also on a mission, probably either coming from water or going to, and to go drive up to them any closer at the time, they probably would have just trotted off, and that's not what we want to do. So if we just approach slowly, they've seen us, they're aware that we're here, and they'll probably stop and give us a glance and then probably move on. I'll just get Wium into a shot here that can try, and I think they're just going to move on, unfortunately, but we can try again just up here. A big beast. Huge. Quarry Pan Road. Yes. I just got word from Louise in Final Control, who's directing for us today. Thanks, Lou. That there's a beautiful sighting, that we've got a space for us And James, that'd be really nice for you to explain to the team, particularly people doing animal management or tourism, how this particular situation we're about to approach works.
So we're on an area, of course, where there are tourism lodges, and that means that there are various other vehicles around looking for animals. I mean, it's quite late now for them to be on drive, but there are obviously still some people out on drive because it's quite cool. Often this time of the year it's really just too hot to be out, and the animals find it about as offensive as we do. And what we do is the vehicles will drive around, they'll find things, and then we're also on radio with them. So there's absolutely, there's an amazing way that we're able to communicate with all the other vehicles in the area, and if they happen to be on our traversing section and they find something, well, then we tell them about it, they tell us about it on the radio, and we'll do the same. But the big thing about that is that we don't want to pressure animals, so we don't pile, unlike places, some of the sort of public parks, national parks in Serengeti or Kenya, where you'll find 40 or 50 vehicles around a lion sighting at one stage. There's never more than 3 vehicles in a sighting in this area, and that's we can only do that because it's a private reserve. We can set our own rules.
Speaking of sightings, we just must stop for this. Yeah. We're on our way to see something else as well, but this is just why we do what we do. We just stumble upon, not only have we got 2 young, probably year-old calves, do you think, James, last year? Yeah. And a female. These particular species is called nyala, which is spelt N-Y-A-L-A. It's a beautiful word when you say it, nyala. And they're females. You can see those beautiful stripes there to break up the shape of their body that they use in the dapple sort of light and the vegetation. They like a little bit of cover. They like to be in this sort of thick wooded area. And then coming up directly after is a magnificent nyala bull. And this is a really pretty antelope. Look at the markings on him. Isn't he sensational? So, a nyala bull and 2 youngsters and a female just walking across. And you see what we've done? We've stopped. We've let them dictate the rules. They're on a mission. They're walking across. They're not running. They're taking their time. We're respecting them. We stopped at a safe distance. This is fantastic. This is what it's all about.
Beautiful.
And we get to, there's another bull over there as well. So we get the privilege of them tolerating us, and we get the privilege of them accepting us so we can view them properly. Really nice. And it's so peaceful and serene here, folks. It's like, it's just magic. Let's see if I can get that hymn over to you, mate. Here we go. And look, we have wildlife fly in.
This is called a burnet moth. Isn't that wonderful? He's called a fire grill burnet. And he's a diurnal moth. And if you look just behind his wings, you'll see why he's called a fire grill burnet. And they eat something, mostly the flowers. They feed on the flowers and the sap in the flowers of something called a zebrawood or dalbergia.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Wildlife comes to us. Fly, be free. I've got a question from Danny. Danny, thanks for being with us. Thank you for asking a question. This is just brilliant. And I'm talking to you in the UK. James and I are Wium. We've got gorgeous antelope here. We're on our way to see something, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's still there. And Danny, your question is, do I do presentations or shows or sort of include some of this work in back in the United Kingdom? The answer is yes, and you'll be able to get in contact with us if you do an inquiry to the Surrey Wildlife Trust on our website and make an inquiry. We can definitely arrange something at either your college or your school or wherever you are, and I'll be more than happy to try and arrange something for you where we talk about wildlife management or tourism or habitats or learning around the world. And I think it's one of the things Amy, my director, and I got this together for was because we really wanted to show people that yes, it is incredibly exciting in Africa, it is wild, it is crazy, stupid exciting, but it's just like that in the UK, and it's just like that in Australia, and it's just like that in the US, or wherever you live in the world. You've just got to go out and find it and have the energy to do it and make that connection. And don't leapfrog your backyard. So Amy and my sort of motto is local, global, local. Go abroad and get inspired, or watch a television program, get inspired, but come back home and try and replicate that, and make sure your kids or your brothers or your sisters are as enthusiastic about their local environment as they are about what they see in the fantastic world of technology that we live, mate.
I mean, I was recently in the United Kingdom, and I was actually staying in Surrey, quite astonishingly. This was before I met Hayden, and I was just amazed. You know, I come from this incredible environment here that is kind of the stuff of legend, and it is legendary. It's amazing. There are elephants and lions and rhino and buffalo and all sorts of other exciting things here. It's hot. It's exactly like the Africa that you see on TV. Well, southern Africa that you see on TV. And then I went off to Surrey, and I went off. Somebody lent me a horse, and I went off riding, and I got lost on the heath. I don't know which heath it was, somewhere around Blackheath Village. It was an amazing experience to, you know, hear the birds there and smell the different smells. And I went down to Cornwall, and I was in some wild areas there. And you've got some amazing wild areas there that you can really connect. For me, living out here, well, it's wonderful with all the animals, but the connection you have with wilderness, that kind of soul-feeding feeling that you get from being in a wild place. You get that in the UK. It just depends. You just have to go. Maybe you have to look for it a little bit harder sometimes because there are more people there. But absolutely, you've got some astonishingly beautiful spots there in the UK. So I was really grateful to have spent some time with them there.
That's great. I got goosebumps, mate. It is. Surrey is amazing. Absolute incredible places. Some of the reserves that we've got in the trust that we either manage or own for the different organisations is just astonishingly beautiful. And yeah, I really reiterate what James said, because I obviously wasn't born in the UK either. I came to the UK feeling exactly the same as James. Australia is a magical place, beautiful wilderness. Everyone dreams of going there as well, and the beaches and the desert and the outback. But when I got to the UK, I felt absolutely the same as James. All these things that I used to see in storybooks, you know, badgers and Beatrix Potter books and all these things that have been conjured up in my mind, the rolling hills, the hedges and the forests. And these two gentlemen here, we have, this is probably a good time to talk about this. We'll just say hi to the guys as we move past. But hey fellas.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Good.
Very well, thanks. Very well.
So those chaps are part of an anti-poaching unit. Obviously, rhino poaching is a major issue in southern Africa at the moment, and it has been for the last 10 years. So the amount of policing that people do is now a lot greater in these areas. And I think in the private reserve, certainly we're winning the war. I'm not sure about the national park so much, but certainly I think it feels to me like the tide might slowly be turning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they patrol the reserve. We will come across the guys very often. They're fantastic people. I always don't want to put them under pressure on camera or anything like that, because it's not really the done thing. Just a nice wave to say hi to the guys. I'd love to sit down and have an interview with them or a talk with them, but it's just out of huge respect that we wouldn't stop and talk. That's a great question, James.
Yeah.
What from Lisa? Hello, Lisa. Thanks for joining us. And what one piece of advice would I give? And James has got his opinion, of course, about becoming a wildlife ranger. I think one of the things for me, Lisa, is that I never got into wildlife or zookeeping or my love of wildlife for the money. That's the first and foremost. I never did it for the money. Of course we want to be comfortable. Of course we want to be able to go on a holiday and live out some of our dreams. But for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about the love. And I had my love nature switch flicked when I was a very, very young man in my small explorable world of my backyard and my garden back in Australia. And then as I sort of moved off that map and went into the next levels of exploration as a young guy, I just fell in love with everything that was alive on the planet, and that's, for me, was why I did it. That's the best advice I can do. If you get that sorted out, and then never give up, ever give up in chasing what you want to do. And I really mean that, because I am only doing this because I never gave up. Always be nice to people. You just don't know who or what the next step could be or who you're going to meet. And in this day and age, with the world as global as it is, you could be driving someone in a vehicle that's a television director. You could be talking to your next employee. You just don't know. So, you know, being kind and nice to people all your life goes a long way. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, well, first, Lisa, there's a distinction to be made between a ranger and a guide, and I suppose what Hayden and I are at the moment is guides rather than rangers. Would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, a ranger is somebody like those guys we just saw. They're out there patrolling. They are doing some land management. They're assessing the grass species and checking out, you know, what trees are growing where. Ooh. We'll get back to that, Lisa. Let's have a surprise.
Lisa, we've got something that we'd like to just share with you. Hello, babies. Hello, babies. So we're just coming up nice and gently here because this is a breeding herd of elephants, and as long as you don't come in like a crazy bull at a gate, and you just let them know you're here, and we just have to survey the area as well, let everyone know we're okay. Charlie, I hear, Charlie, you wanted to see some of these little guys. Well, you know what? Here we go. Hopefully you guys are feeling this back in Surrey, because I tell you what, we feel it here, James, hey?
Yeah.
Every single time I sit in front of these creatures, my heart skips a beat. The toleration, James.
It's only through time spent here that these animals have started to gain a level of trust for us. And certainly, you know, in the Kruger National Park, up until 1996, they used to cull elephants. And culling elephants means that, you know, due to some fairly dodgy pseudoscience, they decided that there should be a certain number of elephants in the Kruger National Park, and that number was pegged at 7,500, which is just, it has no scientific base at all. And basically, they used to cull elephants until 1996, and up until about 2004, you did not go into an elephant sighting around here unless you had a forward escape route and you didn't turn the engine off very often, because the elephants would often get very upset and then sort of charge you and tell you to get away. Now, over time, of course, that was 10 years ago that the last cull took place. No, almost 20 years ago that the last cull took place. Over time now, the trust has been built up with these elephants. We want to maintain that by driving in slowly always and being completely respectful to how they feel. Elephants are tremendously emotional animals. They definitely display different individual characteristics, and we've just got to be very aware of all of those characteristics when we watch them.
Absolutely, James. Every single word that James has said it's such a complex arrangement, and what we are amongst at the moment is a breeding herd. Now that means that we've got a matriarch, a female in charge, normally related females and their offspring, all together, all in the protection of this unit. I'm just going to try. Wium, can I get you a better position, mate, or would you like to move up a bit? Yeah. I'm just going to reverse, folks. So these animals are very, very relaxed with us at the moment. Easy, guys. there's a lot of little ones here too, so I just want to sort of give you a bit more of an angle there. Is it better up there, mate, or are you happy? Let me just reverse up here, folks. Guys, I just wanted to see if there's a better angle for Wium so you can see more. And it's a bit thick for us to drive in there.
Danny, while Hayden is repositioning, you want to know what kind of technology we use to make this more accessible to schools. Danny, I don't think we changed the technology we use dependent on our audience. I think we just changed the delivery, perhaps, of what we do. And certainly we have, on our normal, we do this every day for 6 hours a day, so we do a 3-hour morning drive and a 3-hour afternoon drive. And our youngest viewers are sort of 4 years old. And they ask questions, their parents tweet through questions for us, and we just change the way we deliver things. We don't change the technology at all. And because you don't need technology out here when you have this incredible array of props all over the place. You can be chewing something or smelling something or seeing incredible animals like this. I mean, doing all sorts of things that will keep even the most ADD child totally enthralled, as long as you know what they're looking for.
Maybe. That might be a bit better for everyone. Is that, yeah, is that okay, Wium? Okay, I just wanted to reverse up to see if there's a bit better shot, but this is probably the best we can do. There is a lot of boulders here, and I don't really want to take out a part of our vehicle, particularly when we're launching up to Big Cat Week on National Geographic, on Nat Geo Wild across the US, so that wouldn't go down that well, would it?
No, I think it would go down fairly poorly, actually.
So as James said, the delivery is that's what we were really excited about today with everyone that's watching, is that this is for you guys are at either at college or at university doing a course or potentially thinking about doing other subjects. I think some of you are actually on your way to Africa either this year or next to do a bit of a stint in South Africa for your course as well. So hopefully this is a little taster. But I think, as James said again, we have learnt that you keep a respectful distance. I mean, I could try and bomb in here and go through all this sort of vegetation and get up nice and close, but all we're going to do is make the matriarch a little bit nervous. One would also take into account that she has, I think one of the other females has a very young calf there, James, and as soon as there's a young calf around, other than being lavished with love and tender care, they're very, very protective when those new calves hit the ground. And I always just want to keep a very, very respectful eye on that. We do have an individual just up here on the left, is out of shot, who might come around and pay us a visit, so I'll keep you posted on that. But this is a beautiful thing, and elephant management is also a very, very interesting situation. You've got an animal that is, I will never ever say destructive, because that always brings a bad connotation on it. They're animals that do change landscapes. They do have huge dietary requirements, and those landscapes over time are changed. And of course, with the land managers and the rangers that do work on these private reserves, they do have to keep a bit of an eye on how the elephants are changing things. But through the removal of that fence, James, between the Sabi Sands and Kruger, there's a much greater traversing area, isn't there?
Yeah, certainly, and with the dropping of the fence into Mozambique also. The Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park is now probably just about 20 years old, I think it began. In 1994 they took down the fences between the Sabi Sands and here, and the Kruger, and then in the early 2000s, the Kruger National Park eastern fence came down into Mozambique and then north into Zimbabwe. So that's added a huge number of hectares and huge amount of space for the elephants to move around in.
I'm going to just... oh no, I'm not. He's coming to us, I think. Well, there's two animals there. I'm just going to keep an eye on these guys because I don't want them to be... I think they're just young... Are they young bulls, mate? I think they're going to be fine by the looks of things. we've got two animals coming up to us now, which is really lovely. And we'll just stay nice and relaxed here with them. I want them obviously to pass through at their own speed. Hello, my friend. A little tiny bit of a head shake just to tell us what's going on. It's okay, my girl. It's okay. It's alright. Don't worry. Everything's fine. There's a go. There you go. That wasn't that scary, was it? Just when they get to that little stage and they don't have the confidence, and they're building their confidence. And you know what we just did then was we did something for their habituation. We did something for the conditioning of these animals for the next tourism person that comes through here. And if you look at it like that you're getting these animals accustomed to the vehicles here. There's no threat to them. We do have these extraordinary experiences. There's another individual just walking through. And you hear how silently they move. So these animals are about probably 10 metres away from us at the moment.
Ooh, it's got a hernia of some sort.
Yeah, this individual up in front has got a medical condition that is quite unusual. There's a protrusion there from the abdomen. I can't quite see it, James, from where I am.
Apparently, these hernias are not that uncommon on elephants. Just underneath the belly there sometimes, and it'll probably heal on its own.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not sure if you can see it. Can you see it? Okay, Wium can't see it yet. But
okay.
As soon as this elephant moves past this tree here, you'll be able to.
I'm going to drive around there anyway, so. Well, maybe he's going to come down to us. There you go. So you do see that. It's okay.
Nasty hernia. That's horrible.
Yeah, that's not good. So I'm sure many of you are asking in your minds or ready to ask a question, are we going to do something about that? I'll probably preempt that for you. The answer to that would be no, because these things happen naturally. This is a natural environment. The only time that people would ever step into some situations if there was a disease that was obviously known through the area. Would that be right, James?
Yeah, and I think any anthropomorphic effect. So if there was a disease that was of human origins or of human livestock origins, we'd do something about it.
Yeah.
And also if it was an endangered species, like a cheetah or a wild dog or something like that, we'd probably step in and try and save them. So often, though, when you get involved in the wild here, reintroductions of leopard and lion and that sort of thing, they almost always result in some kind of tragedy. So as Hayden said earlier, best to just let nature take its course and we just observe.
Absolutely. It's raw and it's real. And I always say that to people. It's not Disneyland, it's not some sort of edited world we live in. We are guests in the wild, and it happens. I saw a giraffe this morning that was lame, very lame on its left leg, big swollen joint on its leg, and eventually, if its vigor stays, and there's no shortage of vegetation here for it, that's for sure, but if its vigor stays up and it maybe gets through that infection, it might be fine. But if it doesn't, it will become part of the food chain, and that's how it works. And it's not always easy to watch, but at the same time, it's a natural world, and I think everyone watching today with us probably understand that. Right. Shall we just head up to the dam and see what we find?
While we're reversing out, Billy, a question from you about tracking. What's the best way to track animals? Well, in an area like this, actually, it's quite interesting. There's a tradition amongst the local people here, normally belong to a group of people called the Shangane people. And they have a tradition of tracking in this area, and it's traditional tracking. It's the traditional skills of the hunter-gatherer tracker, where you will follow tracks track for track, watching them on the ground, watching for signs of grazing. If you're looking for a herbivore, or tracks of maybe scat, dung, if you're looking for a carnivore. It's an entire science on its own. And it's also quite interestingly, certainly if you go up around the Bushman and the Kalahari, it's almost mystical. Some of you hear amazing stories of them being able to kind of intuitively predict where animals are going to go. Now, they will tell you that that's got nothing to do with their knowledge of animal behavior. They will say that they can feel ostrich or feel kudu where they're going. And whether or not you buy into that sort of thing, the ability to track animals is a tremendous local culture here and a tremendous local skill.
Now, it's one of the most fascinating things about it, tracking when you're with a good tracker.
The elephant in front of us.
Yeah, I thought there was more. There's something outside the door there that I wanted to show you, but I might have to just reverse and do it. There's a couple of other big individuals just in here, so let's just... The largest land mammal on the planet, and they blend in.
Astonishingly well.
Yeah, beautifully. Same colour as the bark on most of the trees here. Can you see that, Wium, quite nicely? Or?
There we go.
Okay, well let's do that then. That's good. Can you see that, James?
Yeah, I got him.
So what do we have here?
A dung beetle. Probably plum-coloured plum dung beetle, they're called. Rolling a piece of dung. And you can see how amazingly poor the elephant's digestive system is. You can see that. I mean, that's virtually undigested, and apparently about a 30% efficiency only. So the 60% of the nutrients that are in the plants that they eat are still in that dung. That dung beetle is having a kind of frenzied frolic of joy in the, and a great big pile of excrement that's just been deposited.
Yes, some people's version of rolling around in a bathtub full of M&Ms.
Yes.
But yes, for the dung beetle, that is pure health spa magic. And we really be careful that we don't drive over many of the elephant or the buffalo. It's okay, guys. Let's have a listen to that. Can't quite hear it. There's a subsonic, there's a very low rumble that we can feel here.
So elephants make a sort of communicative rumble in their voice boxes. It's too low for our ears to hear, but we can kind of feel it. It kind of rushes, rumbles through your bones.
It really does reverberate through your... And when you hear it, and you hear it at close quarters, it's it's a humbling experience, and I think that's really good that we realise that we're a small speck compared to these incredible creatures. So that was pretty cool. That was great, Charlie. Hopefully we fulfilled, and many other people. I know Amy, you wanted to see Ellie's as well. We have some pretty good elephant luck when we do our Surrey Wildlife Trust broadcasts. We had an extraordinary experience up here at this dam we're coming last time, so you never know what's around the next corner. But elephants throughout here is always a showstopper. You can find an individual. We saw some beautiful ones. We were up this morning broadcasting live from here at 5 o'clock this morning, which is 3 o'clock in the morning in the UK. And we came across some beautiful elephant this morning. And it was just great. And just to sit with them and be in their space is a beautiful, beautiful, humbling experience.
Now, Luke, you asked a very sort of a clever question about the ecology of the area, and do the numbers of some animals affect the numbers of other animals? Yeah, well, definitely. And I mean, I'm sure, I don't know what level of ecology you've studied, but you'll see that classic graph, I'm sure, during the course of your studies of the dynamic equilibrium, where you've got on your x-axis or your y-axis, you've got the number of predators there are, and you've got time on the x-axis, and as soon as the number of the predators dips, so the number of the prey goes up, and then the lines cross like that as the number of predators and prey alternate between each other. And that kind of dynamic equilibrium is quite a nice representation, I think, of what happens here. The more elephants you have here, the fewer some species of tree you'll get, but the more you might have grazing animals that like to come into the clearings that are created. So absolutely, everything affects everything else, and the niche, the ecological niche, which is made up of so many different components and dimensions, will change constantly for animals. And so if the niche is not just right for an animal in an area like this, they'll normally die out and they'll have to go away. And that's more so for smaller things like the insects, and not the more obvious things that we're looking at. Nice one, Luke.
Just coming up through this bit of country. I'm driving quite slowly here for two reasons. I want you to be able to hear us, because if you go too fast and there's a lot of shaking and banging around. The second reason is we don't drive fast here. We don't drive fast in any wildlife area.
There's a vehicle there. Leopard.
Oh my gosh.
Male leopard. It's fantastic. It's Mvula.
Oh my god. This is incredible. I haven't seen a Mvula. Oh, look at that. That is incredible. We had no idea that this animal was here, guys. We just came around the corner and there was a vehicle just there. Oh, look. He's actually looking at... He was potentially looking at an opportunity there. There was an antelope that just ran behind. Obviously, those guests that are there, I want them to make sure that they're in here first. It's really important that we were the second vehicle on location, so pay respect to the person that was here before you. Don't know where he's gone. He's moving through.
Yeah, we might be able to get a view. I think we are going to have to get close.
Very thick. So what I'm trying to do, folks, is just get up into a little clearing or something that I might be able to edge my nose of the vehicle. We might be able to go up into there, mate. Just let me... This is very exciting stuff. This is what it's about. This is what being here in this incredible place is about. You don't know what's around the next corner. I love saying that. Every time I say it, something happens. It's brilliant. Well, not every time. Most times it doesn't. Mvula. See, we know these leopards very, very well. We know all their names. We did. We've been with these leopards. Now, as I'm going over this tree, just to explain to you, this tree will go underneath the vehicle and bounce back up. Okay, so please don't think that I'm driving over trees or shrubs, but it will come back up. It's a very high wheelbase. Just going to position ourselves up here and then we'll stop and turn off.
Well, Hayden is negotiating us through here. Sonia, good question. Have we ever had an incident where an animal will charge us? Sonia, sometimes you do. Sometimes you come across an irritated animal and it just gets so irritated by you for no apparent reason that it can charge. It's very unusual. Elephants certainly was something during the 80s and 90s that would charge cars, but something like that, leopard or lions, it's extremely unlikely that they would ever charge at the vehicle. Any ideas, William?
just keeping our eyes open. We've come into this opening here, and we can just sit for a bit and see if he was on the move. He may be going to find a shady spot at this point because it is getting quite warm, and leopards will normally go flat at this time of the day, so it's quite unusual to see him walking like that. Wium standing up on the back of the vehicle looking through his camera as well. So we've got 3 sets of eyes here looking for this magnificent creature, what I like to call, they are the Rolls Royce, they're the incredible encapsulation, for want of a better word, and the embodiment of power, strength, agility, stealth. And we're just keeping an eye open. I'm just going to drive around a little bit further. Got to keep your eyes on them, move through silently. And the guys are looking out here. Wow. Mvula, the leopard. This is amazing, guys. Absolutely fantastic. So you might hear some scratching and scraping down the sides of the vehicle. Please don't worry about it. It sounds a lot worse than it actually is. And we either negotiate over the shrubs or round them. We minimise the impacts with that down an aardvark hole. Excuse me. Do you remember my cameraman on the back? It's not a commodity that is used. He is here for good. So we have to watch everything, the low branches, the question from... Sorry. Little clutch. We'll just stop here for a second. Now we're stopped. Question from Lisa about how do I feel about animals in captivity. Well, Lisa, I come from a sort of background that I worked with captive animals for a very long time. I believe that, of course, my love is of animals in the wild, but it's a very, very great privilege and a luxury sometimes to think that everyone can come to Africa, or this is what one of the things that Safari Live does, is hopefully shares that with as many people as possible. But sometimes people need to have an educational experience with wildlife, and that situation really does have to be a well-run or well-managed zoological institution or wild animal park. Now, in the old days, so many of those animals used to be captured. I'm talking hundreds of years ago. In this day and age, zoos are an incredibly important, they play a major role in conservation. There's good and bad zoos, of course there is, all over the world. Just like there's good and bad TV, just like there's good and bad colleges. But at the end of the day, captive animal management is a very, very important thing. When it's done well, when the animals are behaviourally enriched and they're looked after properly, I think it can be a successful educational commitment that the institution puts forward to make the world a better place. On that note, yes, there's some animals that don't do fantastically in captivity. The big cats, bears, elephants. But again, if their behavioural enrichment is off the scale, off the chart, you can have a very, very successful group of animals to educate people in the greater part of the world. They're like ambassadors for their species. So it's all about quality, it's all about management, it's all about enrichment. So hopefully that's answered your question, and there's nothing like seeing them in the wild, of course. Now,
should we just try the radio quickly?
Sure. We're just going to call on the radio whilst I'm
viewing Mvula coming.
Just keeping an eye on what's going on. We're just calling on the Game Drive channel.
Station go again?
Just seeing who...
Just looking for the station who was viewing Mvula on Gori Pan Road.
Just trying to find out who that vehicle was and maybe...
The only one I know is it was in Volvo on Gori Pan Road. I'm not sure about Mvula.
Okay, so because we're out
we had a view of Mvula
at a certain time, that no one else is out, there's a vehicle that we don't know who it is, and they might not have a Game Drive channel on.
We've lost visual, we're trying to relocate off road.
So we're just going to try and keep ourselves going.
Okay, apologies, yeah. That area, sorry, can't help.
I reckon we should have a sniff around here, guys. What do you think? Yeah? It's Jamie. So we've got Jamie, who is one of our other presenters, who's just called in to us, heard that call and said, I'm up around this way, I can come and give you a hand. And she's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic member of the team. Very knowledgeable, great tracker, great set of eyes. My goodness, she's got eagle eyes. She found leopard yesterday as well. I had this funny feeling he's gone down, you know. He's laid down. It's just very, very tight country here for us to negotiate. But we are going to go. That dapple lights, that dapple coat, that beautiful rosette pattern, it just blends them into the landscape, even in the daylight as they're walking. Very typical to, sorry mate, can you just push that away? We've got some species of acacia and different others here that have got massive thorns on them. Some have got hooks. And if they get you, you know about it. This is a bit picky. That one in particular. I might have to try and go back.
Yeah, I think you'll get one there.
Yeah. Okay. Just watch yourself there, Wium. Watch your eyes, guys. Your camera, mate. Let's just have a little look in here. Did you hear that?
While Hayden is negotiating this fairly thick area, Graham, a lovely question about wild dogs, and I'm sure if we get to this dam where we were heading, Hayden will tell you an incredible story about wild dogs. We absolutely do get wild dogs in this area. You know, they have enormous home ranges of up to 1,000 square kilometers. So they'll be here for a couple of days and then they disappear, and they might be gone for weeks. They might be gone for a few days. There is some overlap, and we've had a really good winter. They breed in the winter time, and we've had a lovely time with them. You know, we've had 2 packs coming on and off this reserve, and we've had some really excellent sightings. So we're really lucky we get them. But you know, as far as wild dogs go, it really is just about pot luck. about when you see them and when you don't, but they are the most rewarding sightings I find. They're certainly my favourite animals to get out there.
Absolutely, 100% agree with James. Absolutely exciting to be on a hunt with wild dog. It's frantic, frenetic, it's strategic and cooperative at the same time.
And while we're sitting here, I suppose the question must be, you know, how does a leopard react to us bashing through the bush like this?
Absolutely.
And the leopards become tremendously accustomed to us very quickly. And you'll find that he will react, he'll behave almost completely normally while we're driving through here. He wouldn't change his behaviour in the slightest.
That's exactly right, and we do explain that to people a lot for the simple reason that it is a question that comes up. And you know, I could take you back there, all that vegetation has sprung back up, a couple of little broken dead branches, but we really do take care when we come through. We get into some tight spots. Oh, there's a leopard out there somewhere. Whilst we're just sitting here, just looking through the binoculars, Amy's got another question. It's a great question, Amy. Has there ever been times where the vehicles have failed us? The answer to that is yes. In a nutshell, many a time. But not necessarily these vehicles, but a vehicle that you've been in. You might have a flat tyre. We always carry spares, of course. 2 spares is always preferable, because you can be driving through country like this and get one puncture, then you only have to get another puncture and you're stuck. As James just looked at my tyre then, knowingly, we're okay. And that sort of thing does happen. Yeah, it does happen. But luckily, you know, we've got these comms back to our final control centre. We've got another backup radio, which is what we call our game drive channel, which has got loads of different landowners and rangers on it and guides. So we've got our bases covered pretty much. And the most important thing really is that you just got to when you interview for your cameraman, you ask them to do a fitness test with you, and if you can run faster than them, they get the job.
Very important, that you must be able to run faster than your cameraman. It's extremely important.
So, on that note, we've got about 20 minutes to go. I think we're going to let's negotiate our way back down there, mate. Yeah, maybe we go straight through. You never know. We've lost Tingana, and sorry, it was Mvula, spelled M-V-U-L-A. But we did get a sighting. That was the most important thing. Incredible stuff, complete spontaneity, and this is what I love about it, mate. There's no way in the world. How would I have ever been able to plan a leopard sighting? There's no chance. We were lucky to hear about those elephants, and those elephants were at the water hole the water point when we came. I heard about them, so we were lucky that we bumped into them. But a leopard, my gosh, that was absolutely super stuff.
Another thing about these particular vehicles that we're driving, of course, is that they are, they're Land Rovers, so they're, it used to be from the UK. I think they're from India now these days. But they're an old engine because they've got a quiet petrol engine. It's a BMW engine, so it's nice and quiet. You can get a more modern engine, but this is a really nice one to be driving around here, and you don't want the noise of a diesel up here.
I'm hoping I'm just going to come around a corner and Tingana, Mvula's just lying there. There he be. This is the exciting thing. Like my heart rate at the moment, if you were to put a heart rate monitor on me, which I do have plans for in the future shows. So what James has just heard is some alarm calls from birds, and that can sometimes be an indicator.
It's not angry enough.
No, it's not. They normally like chat, 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 chat. Loads of different species. The leopards don't have a great time with being going undetected. Once they've been detected, the whole place wants to tell everyone else about it on the telegraph. Might go around there, through. There's our road just there.
Often there's the last bit before the road.
Yes. Well, we saw a leopard, and do you know what? I hand that down to the luck of travelling with this particular cameraman in the back here, Mr. Wium, who is inevitably the luckiest cameraman I've ever worked with. I've seen lines with him, I've been driving along with Wium, and he sits up on the back. I used to call him my eyes in the sky, and we've been driving along, and you just see this tail flick of a line, and sure enough we come across a line pride on a kill. Other times there was wild dog, he spots him. It's a great fun thing having Wium on board. He's alright. Yeah, he's alright. Well, that was pretty exciting.
Marvellous. Right, so I was still chatting about the one piece of advice I'd give to somebody who wanted to become a ranger. So I'm going to split it into two, like I said. Ranger, you want to be basically an ecologist, and you're going to be doing ecological surveys, you're going to be dealing with anti-poaching units, you're going to be doing that kind of more physical, hands-on kind of environmental stuff. And one piece of advice I'd give you for that, I think Hayden's on the money there when he says, don't expect to get rich. Don't expect to get rich, but you'll have an incredibly rewarding job, and you must be prepared to work long hours in very beautiful places. If you're a guide, I think the best advice I can give you is
Yeah.
the best advice I can give you is to just you need to try it first. Being a guide is about being a people person more than it is about being a biologist or an ecologist. And often some of the best biologists and ecologists are terrible guides because they either put people to sleep with all their knowledge, or they just don't like people. And guiding is far more about people than it will ever be about biology. And so, those are the two things. So I would say that if you want to be a guide, you need to love people. If you want to be a ranger, you need to love wildlife and long hours. Yeah.
Very, very true facts. The vehicle that you can hear in the background is Jamie, our other co-presenter, who's driving around, and she's just giving us a thumbs up. And here comes the party that potentially saw this animal with us. We might just see what they've got to say. That's really, really kind to hear. Thanks, Charlie. It is a very, very great team of people we've got here. We've got great presenters, great technical support, great managers, directors. It's all a big team effort. It is one big family. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but this is the best crew in 20 years I've been working in television I've ever worked with. It is really spectacular. So we've got about just over 10 minutes. I think we probably should just sit here for a bit and see what happens, because this is quite a special spot. We've seen some extraordinary stuff happen here, but for the moment we might as well look at the matter at hand. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buffaloes, Cape buffalo, and they are males or solitary males that often get pushed out of the herd, or they're beyond their prime, and they form these bachelor groups. Safety in numbers. There's more coming up over the crest here, and buffalo need to drink at least once a day. In the big herds of buffalo, they have fantastic individuals, sometimes known as pathfinders, and they're the ones that actually lead the herd to water or to the grazing grounds. But in this situation, these are all males, and they are forced to be reckoned with. They will defend each other. They're incredibly dangerous for predators to take on. But in a group like this, they're even more dangerous, and you'd find it very, very unlikely that unless it was an extreme situation, James, of desperation in some environment, that a pride of lion would take on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, they are certainly formidable, very powerful animals. And I think, I mean, quite apart from that, the one thing for me about Africa is that people often consider it a tremendously dangerous place, and some of the animals responsible for that reputation are buffalo. But remember, everyone, I don't believe that there's such a thing as an inherently dangerous animal. I think animals can become variously threatened depending on how they're affected by human beings, and so there are lots of potentially dangerous animals. And buffalo get their fearsome reputation mainly from hunters. And, well, I mean, as you are a human being, you know that if you are cornered by somebody, eventually you're going to fight back. And I think the same goes for buffalo, really. I think I've certainly walked past them on foot, not noticed them by mistake, and looked to the side, and they've been no more than 4 or 5 meters, and they'll just watch you walking past. That's not to say that you mustn't be extremely careful and respectful all the time when you see them, but I don't think that they're inherently dangerous. I don't think anything out here is inherently dangerous.
That's very true, mate. Absolutely true. And it's like the words, it's the way that you put things across to people, and the historical, the inherited trait or the inherited belief system that people have. And it goes on with sharks, it goes on with all different species. As soon as you have, as James has mentioned, a human-animal conflict situation, whether it be with a person that's going out to try and take one of these animals out, or whether it's a community living by, the perceptions are very, very different. So in the situation we are now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 beautiful creatures, absolutely spectacular, incredible capability that they have. Understanding that capability is the key sort of answer to the question.
I just wanted to point out a bird that I think has probably come from somewhere around the United Kingdom.
Oh yes, look at that.
Little bird there.
Look at that.
It's a green shank.
It is a green.
As far as I can tell.
Yes, it is.
And that green shank has just arrived back, everybody.
Oh,
you got it there.
It's tricky. Yeah. It's
white one, right? Yeah, white front. I don't know, with the grey back. You got it.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. Absolutely. Be really interesting if I had my bigger or stronger binoculars here. If you had a bird scope, you would be able to see if that was potentially had a ring on it, because sometimes birds have a ring on it which be able to gather data.
I think it's just so nice to make that connection with people who are in different parts of the world, to be able to say that comes from where you live.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question from Amy about what's the most amount of animals that we've seen in this. I think both of us have got different answers to that. I've got 2. I've seen my biggest elephant herd here, and Amy, you were actually watching with me last time when we broadcast to Surrey schools. We saw up to 100 elephant here, and it was multiple family groups that came. They just kept on coming. They kept on coming over the hills. It was just incredible, and we had to sign off at the end of it as well, which was pretty tricky to do, because leaving those situations, I can stay here all day. The second number of animals that I saw here was a herd of buffalo, probably 200, 300 strong. That was quite a spectacle, because it's a complete sort of frenzy of all the animals coming down to drink, and lots of noise and lots of splashing around. What about you, mate?
I think a breeding herd of buffalo, big breeding herds. I mean, they get up to sort of 500 strong here sometimes. And especially as the water concentrates like this, you can see it's drying out, and all the dams will be drying out now, and so the herds will be pretty big this time of year when they're coming down.
You can see a couple of little tracks through this muddy interior here as well. Wium's just got the shot on there. I'm going to have a guess to see if someone can tweet us in quickly. We've got about 6 minutes to go, James. Someone can tweet us or 5 minutes to go, Lou's just informed me. Email us or send us a tweet really quickly and tell us if you think you can tell us what they're from. And we'll give you a massive shout out. Who made those tracks? I think you had a bird to show us as well.
Well, there's that other bird there called the saddle-billed stork. You got him there.
Whilst Wium's just on that, and I'll let James take over quickly, Mary did have a question. Do animals ever alarm call, birds or other animals alarm call when we're driving through the bush? In some parts of Africa I've worked in, Mary, yes, they do, when they're unhabituated, when they're not conditioned to the vehicle and they don't know the vehicle's used to represent a threat. In this part of the world, where we are right now, the animals, as James mentioned before, incredibly conditioned and habituated to the vehicle and will operate very, very normally, behave normally when we're around them. But fantastic question, thank you so much.
The two worst parents in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve over there. The goslings there, they started off with 7 and they've only got 3 now. They had 4 until yesterday.
They had 4 this morning.
They had 4 this morning. You can see that now.
I've just got a question just come in quickly, James, from Ali, asking me what's the most difficult position I've ever been in, Ali. Wow, I wish we had more than 4 minutes, but ever so quickly. I've been in some pretty hairy situations all throughout filming for National Geographic over the last 20 years, and I've been very privileged to do that, from working in Afghanistan and translocating animals in the zoo there, to being on walks in Africa, to my travels through all different parts. But you know what, at the end of the day, I think if you've got respect for people and you do it as best that you possibly can, and for wildlife and the environment, you hopefully live the tale to tell the tale. But I think the most dangerous situation I probably was in of late was being late with my tax return.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing for us. That's scary stuff. Thank you so much. Right, how many minutes have we got, Lou?
2.
Callum just asked a question. Callum, welcome, buddy. And I missed the beginning of your question, unfortunately.
Are tourists a hindrance or a benefit to an area like this?
Well, they're a huge benefit. They always will have an impact. There's no doubt on the planet, Callum, that as soon as you put a foot into a pristine environment, you have had an impact. Animals have impact. Everything has an impact. Humans can impact incredibly, but in this part of the world, it's managed. It's managed very beautifully and very well, and it does come down to that full cycle, James, doesn't it? The tourist brings in the dollars, and sadly, it's the way it is. If it were a perfect world and utopia was real, fantastic, but it's not. And money comes in through tourism, and it gets ploughed back in to the habitat and back into the reserve. Great question. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for being with us.
You can come back whenever you finish.
We're just going to drop that down to say farewell to you properly. And I just want to thank you all for watching, all your contributors, all the people that watched, particularly Mariswood College. We're going to get really in contact with you and try and do much more of this. And I'd love to get James involved in it as well, because there's a lovely sort of connection there. James in Surrey, and he goes there a lot and stuff as well. So you never know what could happen. But this is a really lovely sort of start for us to do something very, very constructive, using what we love here to stimulate what you should love there as well. Your own backyard is as important as anything, but also if we can help you platform or spark your career into following your dream and making the reality honest with you, it's not about the money, this is about the love. We need people like you. We need to flick that love nature switch. You've got the last word, mate.
I just hope that you'll be able to come out here one day and enjoy the feeling that this kind of landscape that clearly gives Hayden and gives me, and go outside next time and look at the sky with a different view and try and absorb some of that feeling of wilderness. And I think that you'll be rewarded forever if you're able to connect with the earth on that level.
Thank you so much, guys.
A lot.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Surrey Wildlife Trust.
See you later.